Hey there. We are in crazy preview season, getting a new one every single day. I'm doing my best to keep up. The chaos, the chaos PDF for free Warcry rules dropped today, and I'm going to go over all the unaligned faction things, and then the bespoke warbands. Lot of really interesting changes to the bespokes. They of course were a big part of have been a big part of like community debates, people complaining that they're not good enough, other people, basically saying get good if you don't think you can win with them. Me being at times in between, at times on the people complain too much side of it. But it does seem like they've heard you. So let's just get into it. I'm gonna start though with all the unaligned pieces because I actually personally find these the most interesting. Now the first is the three allies of Chaos. They got minor buffs to compete with kind of similar fighters. For example, in 1.0, the Myrmidon and the Sphinx were really cool, but they kind of got their lunch taken. Doom Bulls were just basically just better Ogroid Myrmidons, and the Contorted Epitome was just a better Mind Stealer Sphinx. They kind of played the same roles in lists. So each of those got just like some small buffs. The Myrmidon went down 30 points. It has 5 fewer wounds, but the abilities do more damage. The Mind Stealer Sphinx, it costs 20 more points now, but the abilities are much better. Each ally has kind of a flavorful but narrow reaction, which I think is pretty fun. You owe it to yourself to take a look at them. The the Sphinx one, I don't know if it's good, but it's definitely fun. Uh, Now for monsters. Chaos has a ton of monsters you can play. Um, I think a lot of people are excited about playing monsters in Warcry. I think that's a great thing. I think it's cool that they allow them in match play. I think it's kind of a recipe for heartbreak. They're going to feel swingy. They're not going to fit on a lot of boards, which is why the Chimera is, in my opinion, the only playable monster. I do think it's good. So it used to be 360 points. They've popped it up to 390 and taken down 5 wounds, but made the abilities significantly better. Um, the reason I think it's the only playable monster in Chaos is because it has flying. I think you could probably play the Zombie Dragon and the Terrorgeist in Death too if you wanted to, but none of the non-flying monsters I think are possible because you need to be able to just pick it up, set it down, because if all of a sudden you're climbing over stuff, it's going to be hard to find a place to put the base. Just an absolute nightmare. So I think you're going to want a flying monster, and the fact that the Chimera has an oval base instead of a round base, it's going to be a little easier to fit it places. For the Thralls largely were nerfed. The reason for that being sort of twofold. One, the Thrall mechanic, being able to put it in any list, definitely sort of makes it, what would you say, like more risky to have them really aggressively pointed. However, the other reason is they have a really solid reaction. I don't know why it only says Chaos Warhounds here. They all have the really solid reaction. Basically, Thralls can bodyguard your leader. So what that means is, anytime something moves within 3 inches of your leader, you can use a reaction on your Thrall to move towards that thing and then also get an attack action on it. So as long as your Thralls stay within their own movement range of your leader, it can be really dangerous to sort of try to take out someone's leader when you just know that a Thrall is going to just get a free action against you to attack you. So it kind of just free value there. I think that makes sort of Chaos Warhounds really sort of attractive. Raptorix kind of changed a little bit, but not much, but then went down 20 points. So I think they're a little bit more attractive than they were before. Yeah, just Chaos Spawn, they're exactly the same, but 5 fewer points. I think they're a pretty reasonable include as well, if that's what you're looking for, kind of that mid-sized beatdown piece. So yeah, a lot to look at Thralls. Really good for any warband that's kind of got struggles in the cheap fighter department, or if you really want to use the beast keyword on the Razor Gore. When I did a survey of all of the of all the Thralls, I did a video of them, and I named the Razor Gore the best one. Unfortunately, with the 20-point increase and the exact same profile taking a 20-point increase, I think that's no longer true, but it's still playable. It's fine. Alright, so we're just going to kind of take these piece by piece, right? So first, the reactions. Splintered Fang has Vicious Riposte. For each hit roll of 1 or 2 from an attack action, you allocate 2 damage points to the attacking fighter. It's just a better counter. You'll use it instead of counter, but I think it's a really low value add, despite being much better. You'd rather just use counter and then have a reaction that you can do for something else too, right? Untamed Beasts, when you get attacked, you can subtract 1 from hit damage. This doesn't affect crits, so I think it's a lot lower in the amount of damage it'll mitigate than, say, the ones that do -1 attack or something like that, or even the ones that do +1 toughness, something like that. I said almost never useful here. I'm sure that's not true. There will be times when you use it because you're just desperate and you need to survive, but I think it's a little bit weaker than a lot of comparable reactions. So these two factions, I wanted to put them together because they got kind of the same set of buffs and nerfs. So overall, they're better than they were before. Like, out of the box, Splintered Fang are much better than they were before now with these improvements. Same is true of Untamed Beasts. Out of the box, they're much better. But one of the things about these was both of these were warbands where if you got a couple boxes, you could actually go toe-to-toe with any AOS warband in 1.0, and so that was kind of special among the Bespoke warbands. However, in this one, kind of both of them saw really big nerfs to what was the competitive list, right? Serpents just really got beaten up, and this is actually the second time they've been nerfed as well. And then Rock Tusk Prowlers went up 15 points as well, which kind of hurts. So even though both are better out of the box, I'm skeptical that they'll be better like tuned up. Do you know what I mean? So for example, Prey Takers got a lot better, but you were just never even close to letting them see the table before, and so I'm wondering, even in the most tuned lists, does Prey Takers being better really make you want to take them? I don't know. Luckily, for Untamed Beasts, Plains Runners are basically untouched. So moving on, the Unmade, they have Shared Pain. It's basically counter, but instead of misses and anti-crits ones, it's just deals 1 damage per hit and 2 per crit. I actually kind of like that better. Now it is, again, like the other one, it's a low value add because you use it in the same situations as counter, but I kind of like it better because you can kind of win for losing that way. Counter, it's like you do the most damage when the attack was good for you regardless. So this one's kind of fun that way. Corvus Cabal has a really interesting one. So when an enemy fighter finishes, visible to you and within 5 inches vertically and horizontally, you make a move action, and it finishes within 1 inch of them. And if you were above them, they take impact damage. I think it's really solid, although it will require really skilled setup. But it can be really nice of just like, basically they can't move near you without you coming down on them. And yes, you would have used that action to do it anyway, but this gives you extra value, the impact damage, just a little bit more onto whatever you were going to do. And, being able to put some of that on, like, out of sequence means that, say, a fighter with just 1 or 2 wounds just can't come near your person at all, even to, like, pick up a treasure or something, because you'll just react, take them out, and then they've dropped their treasure. Cypher Lords has Unexpected Assault. When an enemy fighter finishes visible to this fighter and within 3, pick a Luminate or a Thrall Master. Now, it doesn't specifically say those. It says Cypher Lords and has the Mystic keyword, just in case they wanted to future-proof and make more Mystic Cypher Lords in the future. But then that unit makes a bonus move and must finish within 1 inch of the enemy fighter that moved within 3 inches. This is really powerful. Now, it's not quite as powerful as Gloomspite Gitz has almost the same thing, but it is slightly better than the one that I think Fire Slayers and some of the Ogre Maw tribes, or not Ogre Maw, Auric Greenskin ones have. Basically, these guys move 5 inches, so you want to make these little castles of overlapping 5-inch stuff. It's a really interesting, I think it'll create a really interesting play style between this and what I call the Cypher Slide, which is their teleport. It's going to be really interesting, and it'll dictate your positioning and list building, and I think clever players will use the teleport to then make interesting reaction possibilities as well, which I think will be sort of really rewarding for people who love the Cypher Lord's playstyle. So all 3 of these kind of got the same treatment. All 3 of them were really, really good, but only in the hands of players who just really, really think about the game, who just like maybe play a lot or just spend a lot of time sort of pre-game planning out how they're gonna run everything, right? All of them were hard to play, but with really high potential. All 3 of these could go toe-to-toe with all of the AOS warbands, but only if you were just like really careful. So people would complain like, oh, I lost every game with my Cypher Lords. Well, that's because they're really hard. But, in theory, you could get a lot of mileage out of them. But all 3 of them received these sort of minor nerfs here and there, like the Shrike Talon went up. That was your best piece before. The Cabbalists with Spears were actually some of the, really dictating the terms of, they were some of the best chaff in the game for a while there. The Mirror Blades, I was always going on and on about how amazing the Mirror Blades were because you could teleport them into combat and they were the cheapest things in the game that could one-shot kill a chaff model, right? So that made them really powerful and made it so Cypher Lords could be really good if you played them well. But, they took a hit. The Blissful one, which I never played the Unmade, but I've heard that the Blissful one was really amazing and just a really powerful piece. I know someone won a tournament in New Zealand using the Blissful one as an ally. So for all of them, their best piece took a hit, and sort of resulting buffs elsewhere in the warband were just really tiny. And I think that's too bad, because I think there should be room for sort of high reward warbands that really reward you for getting to learn them really well. Now, I'm not saying those don't exist in Warcry, like Gloomspite Gitz, the way they've been changed in the Destruction Tome. I think they're going to be like that, where they really, really reward careful play. But I do think the rules team is kind of overestimating the community's skill level here. I think with these nerfs, these warbands, if you didn't learn them in 1.0, man, it's going to be really hard to learn them and pick them up and get good with them in 2.0, because you're just going to do a lot of losing before you start winning again, and even their ceiling isn't quite as high, so they won't quite reward you as much as they did before. And I think that's a shame, because actually Cypher Lords and Corvus Cabal, and those were probably my top 2 aesthetically of the original warbands. The Unmade probably coming after Untamed Beasts, but still, all of them, I thought, these are some of the prettiest warbands in the game, and so that was too bad to see them kind of, not brutally nerfed. If you're already really good with them, you'll keep winning with them, but, just nerfed just enough to make them hard to pick up. Let's get into some some sort of much better times, though, for sort of lovers of these warbands, right? So we're going to go first with Iron Golems. They have Clashing Iron. After they're targeted by a melee attack, but before the hit rolls are made, count up to 2 crits from that one as hits instead. This is potentially huge damage reduction, although you kind of have to, gamble a little bit. So I would usually lean on counter instead, unless I'm just really desperate to survive the attack. But you could use this, and who knows, maybe when you playtest you'll find that you really like it. Darkoath Savagers just have roll a dice for each crit. On a 4-up, it counts as a hit. So I wanted to talk about these together because I just think the Darkoath Savagers one is just a worse version of the Iron Golems one. So I think that's just kind of too bad, but whatever. The real thing here, and there's a poet, I think his name is Ludicrous. He goes, pulled up with about 1 million trucks, looking, feeling, smelling like $1 million. And that is how you are feeling today if you are a Darkoath Savagers or an Iron Golems player. These warbands just got massive buffs all over the warband. Now a lot of them, the costs went up, but the stat boosts just went up dramatically in exchange, and some of their fighters even went down in cost while getting more powerful. You know, for example, the God Speaker went down 10 points and got +1 movement. The Wrath Touched went down 15 points and got harder to kill. You know, all of these buffs, really incredible. Sort of Glory Seekers, they, you know, actually kind of all went down points while mostly staying the same. So that means it's easier to chaff up with Darkoath Savagers. You know, Iron Golem saw a lot of points increases, but their buffs were just massive. Like, they're getting more damage and they're harder to kill. Now they did keep it so that, like, with Iron Golems, 1 box still makes 1,000 points. I assume they did that with Darkoath Savagers. I haven't tallied it up, but it looks that way based on about half as many sort of points hikes as points drops. But just all of it, sort of 1,000 points out of the box, you're getting just way more stats than you did before, which I think is exciting. I also think, even besides this, Darkoath just got major buffs from the ally rule. So the cool thing about Darkoath, their whole mechanic is about kind of investing in the future, right? So they've got 2 different mechanics. One is their stats go up as they get kills if you spend doubles. And the other one is you can spend a double now to get a chance at getting a wild dice later, which lets you really boost up your dice heavy allies. So something like the Mind Stealer Spheranx, if you put it in with Darkoath Savagers, you can just have tons of dice. The Mind Stealer is an incredibly dice hungry piece, and so that just all of the heroes with interesting abilities, all of them really benefit from hanging out with Darkoath Savagers. So, you know, pick up your Slaughterborn, your God Speaker, which is what does that, and then as many of the you know, cheap fighters as you want out of Darkoath, and then just try plug and play with all of your favorite heroes from Chaos Grand Alliance. I think you'll have a lot of fun, and you might strike some gold, who knows. Scions of the Flame and Spire Tyrants, actually not in that dissimilar of a situation. So first of all, Blaze of Glory, it's the same as the other one. Reverse counter, deals 1 damage per hit, 2 per crit. I like it better than counter, but it's a really low value add because, you know, you'd rather be reacting to something else. The same is true with Spire Tyrants. You know, I think that this is going to be better than counter in most situations, but still a really low value add, since I'm just not a fan of any of the reactions that you would use in the same situation that you would use counter, just because I'd rather be sort of having more options available to me. However, both of these warbands, just like the last two, got way stronger. Now these, by a little bit less, you can see the sort of in the profile delta column, all of the 2 previous ones were getting sort of plus survivability and plus damage. Here they're kind of getting one or the other. You know, some of the Scions are getting harder to kill, like the Fireborns, the Immolator, the Inferno Priest, and then some of the Scions of the Flame are just doing a little bit more damage. Those ones are also going up in points. I would say, actually, point for point efficiency, I would say the Initiates got a little bit weaker, but they're still really solid, I think. And then the Blazing Lord, I think that's pretty exciting. And then Brazen Champion, I know a lot of people were fans of the Brazen Champion. I remember when I did the video talking about Scions of the Flame and saying that, you know, the Immolator was kind of a better point for point fit than the Brazen Champion was, and that the Brazen Champion actually, points efficiency wise, is kind of the weakest fighter in the warband. I got a lot of people mad at me in the comments, but so vindication for me. They felt like they needed to drop the Brazen Champion in points. They felt like they had to go 15 points higher on the Immolator and only give it 3 more wounds. But you know, now they're probably pretty similar point for point efficiency. And then what's nice is the Fireborn and the Inferno Priest both got much better. Now whether you're still willing to play them or not, I don't know, but they are much better. I think for both of these factions, because if you look, like, buffing the Bestigor Destroyer, the Head Claimer, the Pit Vets, both of these got improvements aimed at solving the mid-size trap. All of their mid-size models just got much better, especially point for point. And their chaff, both of these were kind of defined by if you were playing with allies and you got like 3 boxes, so you had all the initiates or all the pit fighters, you could make really powerful warbands. Their chaff kind of took a hit here. That said, they're still pretty solid. I think pit fighters are still reasonable. So I think both of these factions are pretty big beneficiaries of the ally mechanic. The pit champion out of Spire Tyrants getting kind of better in both directions. I think that also helps, right? You can have kind of a Bash Brothers situation of just your favorite Chaos ally come in with your pit champion, hang out with all the pit fighters. You can make a really fluffy warband that way. So I think that these are just a lot better, a lot more playable. I think if you're a fan of either one, you're going to be really happy with these. Spire Tyrants were kind of so bad as to be a meme before, so I don't think this makes them competitive, but it does make them very casually playable, and that's what we want for, you know, in 99% of the times, right? Finally, let's talk spiders. I won't miss them. Now, at 50 points, they're kind of still playable, actually. They're not good anymore, but they're kind of still playable. However, the warband, I would say, this hit was enough to kind of make them not very competitive anymore, in my opinion, which I think the people who were at tournaments and faced spiders will probably be thankful for. Gen Con is in just 2 days. If you have spiders, bring them to Gen Con. This is going to be your last chance. I know some people love some folks who are going to be there. Please, if you're watching this, make all of those good people have just massive headaches by just bringing spiders. Let this be the last reunion of all the spider players who can just absolutely destroy everyone. Because I do think that, you know, the hit to Broodmasters, making them do less damage and cost 20 points, it just feels overkill. I mean, their ability suite is really good, but I think this takes them down just more than one notch. You know, I think this takes them down quite a bit. Their reaction is also one of the not very good reactions. Just on a hit roll of 1 or 2, allocate 2 damage to that fighter. Again, one of the weaker reactions. We did see Broodkin get better, so if you love Tarantulos, maybe lean a little bit in that direction. The Broodkin Scythe was actually like really unplayable before, and now it's playable. 60 points for it is actually a very reasonable deal. I think Broodkin with 2 daggers is kind of a reasonable deal. If it weren't for the Broodmaster getting hit with a pretty huge nerf, I would actually say that you could only play 1 or 2 spiders for the abilities and have a really solid warband if the Broodmaster was still the same. But, you know, alas, they took that out too. So either way, I don't think we'll be talking about spiders much in the meta, but that's probably for the best. So that's what we've got for the Bespoke warbands. Of course, I'm splitting Chaos into 2 with this video. I'll have the sort of AOS Chaos warbands in another one, along with Order. So until then, may all your rolls be crits.